Baseball is back. And with that, welcome into the latest episode of the Hunter Baumgardt Sports Podcast. My name is Hunter Baumgardt, your host. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at HunterBOnAir, or you can like the Facebook page as well. Do all of them. Like the Facebook page, Hunter Baumgardt Sports. Also, remember, you can watch or listen to the podcast. Whatever is easiest for you, you can watch on YouTube or listen on SoundCloud. Just search Hunter Baumgardt Sports Podcast. Well, baseball is back, like I said, and I am super excited about it. I'm guessing you are too, but you might be a little fatigued from what just happened in the last month and a half with baseball. And I want to get into the ins, the outs, what this 60-game season is going to look like, some of the strategy that might be included with it for managers and teams and building rosters, etc. But I also want to get into, I don't want to forget about what happened in the last month and a half. And we're not going to draw on about, oh my gosh, or, they couldn't get a deal done, blah, 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 and how bad it looks. I'm not going to do that. We're going to simply go back to the day kind of this all started and then bring you up to speed till now in a very quick fashion, and then get into the fun stuff, the strategy stuff, DHs and taxi squads, and testing for COVID-19, which isn't really fun, but it's necessary. We're going to get into all this, and I really want to focus on the fun of baseball today, because baseball is America's pastime. It's a sport that is meant for enjoyment. It is a sport that is meant for entertainment. I mean, that's what sports are. They're entertainment. And we need to get back to the basis of that, because sure, as a sports talk host or as a sports TV person or whatever, what have you, of course you're going to be talking about this saga, for the last month and a half, because there's no sports going on. And obviously it's a story and people want to be informed about that. And that's what you're going to talk about. So there's nothing wrong with that. But it's going to be super nice, I think, to finally get into the strategy of baseball and what's going to happen as the year goes by. So let's. First of all, I'm super excited. As you can tell, I got my Brewers shirt on and we're ready. But let's go back to May 11th for a second, because that's when Jeff Passan of ESPN, he tweeted this. Take a look. The MLB owners have approved a proposal to present to players, as Ken Rosenthal reported. They plan to meet tomorrow to discuss it. Now is when it starts to get serious, and we'll know soon enough if baseball is actually coming back in 2020. Soon enough? Now, this isn't a shot at Jeff Passan, but soon enough, it took a month and a half. And it also tells you how much quicker we thought this was going to happen compared to what really happened, right? Also on that day, Sean Doolittle of the Washington Nationals tweeted this. Take a look. Bear with me, but it feels like we've zoomed past the most important aspect of any MLB restart plan: health protections for players, families, staff, stadium workers, and the workforce it would require to resume a season. Skipping past those health protocols. That was back on May 11th. Now, I'm not going to go back and say what happened on May 12th, what happened on May 13th. I'm not going to do that. But it's interesting to look back at that for, number one, how fast we thought this might go. That Jeff Passan wrote, we're going to know soon enough. I don't think June 23rd was soon enough. And again, that's not a shot at Jeff Passan. It's just that when this took way longer than any of us wanted it to take, including the reporters. So then we get past that. But then the health part of this, right? Because it's interesting. They were working on the same issues on June 23rd that Sean Doolittle was talking about on May 11th. But they waited until they had their economic plan in place before they finalized those health protocols, which is just an interesting way to do it. So it's kind of weird how they went about that. And it's interesting that something that really, the last nail that needed to go in was the players approving this health and safety protocol. And obviously, they extended it. They went to over 100 pages from what I'm hearing, from 67. And just like the NBA plan, they have over a 100-page document. They have 101 pages, I think it is, for baseball. And that's what was the last thing that happened. And so due to that the thing that Sean Doolittle was talking about on May 11th was the last thing before we can officially say there's a baseball season. So I thought that was interesting to look back at a couple of tweets there. Now, what I haven't understood until now is why this entire negotiation has played out in public. It should have never happened this way. It just shouldn't have. It's awful look for the game. It's an awful look for the people involved, because you can villainize the specific players who tweet specific things. You can villainize owners. You can really, you can be mad at specific people here. And I think we just need to take kind of it all as a group more and say, okay, the players couldn't do this. The owners couldn't do this. Rob Manfred couldn't do this. Because if we start taking individual players or individual owners, I think that's when it kind of gets. And the owners didn't divulge a lot, but there were players, Trevor Bauer, other people who put their opinions out there. And by the way, check Trevor Bauer's Twitter account, because it has some great perspective. But here's the deal: he's a pitcher in Major League Baseball. So what I think that we'll focus, though, is why did these negotiations take place in the public eye? Why did this take place in the public? The NBA didn't go public until they had a plan. The NHL is doing everything behind closed doors, it seems like. I'm not hearing much. The NFL won't let out a peep till they know exactly what they are doing. That is the NFL for you. I mean, I saw Adam Schefter tweeted today that, he got a text from someone in the league saying there will be a season. Everything's being ironed out right now. We don't hear any of that. Isn't that just unreal, the contrast between baseball and NFL? And you can maybe like it. You can maybe like it on the side of the Major League Baseball, or you could not like it maybe on the side of NFL. But I think it's just such a stark contrast between the two. I think it's fascinating. However, the only reason that I can think of, and it could be a valid reason, for baseball to have these negotiations consistently public and telling the reporters like Ken Rosenthal, Bob Nightingale, and Jeff Passan what's going on, and telling Karl Ravech what's going on, and telling all these people and making that and having them tweet it and then report on it and write on it and everything, and is to have baseball continue to be in the public eye and not forgotten about. That is the reason. Because let's just say this takes place behind closed doors, right? The last month and a half, we wouldn't have heard a peep, right? And we were just looking for something to talk about on sports radio, on sports TV, and something to look forward to. But if we didn't hear anything on a possible season, sure, we'd make it, but it might have been worrisome and a little eerie, wouldn't have? If we didn't hear anything, let's say you heard no reports, the baseball reporters for ESPN and The Athletic and all these people, they were all silent on all of this. And all of a sudden, on the night of what would have been June 23rd, Jeff Passan, Bob Nightingale, Ken Rosenthal, your top three baseball guys, really, Karl Ravech, break the news that there's a season at 60 games, blah, 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 and we're going to have taxi squads, and we're going to have COVID testing, and we're going to be in our own ballparks, and we're going to be traveling only to interleague teams within our region. We're only going to be playing 60 games, and 40 of them are going to be a division, and all that comes at you at 100 miles an hour. Would we like that? Or did we enjoy the back and forth? Now, sure, it's a bad look, but is it as bad of a look as if baseball would have actually been silent this entire time and actually hadn't said a word until June 23rd when they announced they're coming back? I just think it's something, because I think I don't think they prolonged negotiations to stay relevant, but I think they might have put this in the public eye to stay relevant a little bit. Because what did sports talk hosts and what did everybody talk about for the last month and a half? And what, if you did a Zoom call with your family and you're a sports fan, what did you talk about? The baseball. What's going on with baseball, right? That's the MLB stayed relevant through these ugly negotiations. Now, as far as the bickering and the players calling out the MLB and the MLB calling out the players and the owners being against the season, all that public was not a good look, okay? And, they wanted to be in the public eye, but they should have done it a different way, obviously. Not give out all the numbers, not give out all the bickering, not to tell us when and where, if you're not going to tell us when and where, all of that. That all should have been simply not exactly given out. But there is an argument to be made that because they tweeted, because they broke the owners or whoever players broke the stories to these reporters, They did stay relevant. I think it's very interesting. So take that as you will, but I think it's important to think about the strategy of sports and the strategy of the off the field sports. It's a business at the end of the day. And clearly we saw that because both sides could not agree to an economic deal here. And eventually Rob Manfred said, here's a season. And obviously that's the most glaring business part of all of this. But also it's the fact that baseball has to stay relevant. And we've talked about this. I did an entire podcast on how if there's no baseball because of money and not because of COVID-19, it'll be a bad look. Well, it might have also been a bad look had we went through the last month and a half and not heard a peep from Rod Manfred and not heard a peep from other players or whatnot. Now, I think they could have scaled down what they've given out, like I said, and they could have said, okay, we're not going to give away the exact numbers of all of this. We're not going to give away the exact numbers of our offers, but we're going to say, here's an offer. We're going to, tell Ken Rosenthal we've given an offer to the players. Tell Jeff Passan what's going on, right? So that would have been, I think, the better way to do it. But they wouldn't have given out the exact numbers. But I think it's interesting to think about. But here's the deal. We have baseball, and in a world where we are literally critical of everything, let's just embrace baseball right now. Okay? Root like heck for this season, and let's have some fun while doing it, okay? Because listen, I root like heck for this to be pulled off despite COVID-19, okay? Because America needs sports. We need sports. That article that was written about a month ago, maybe even 2 months ago now, in, I think it was the Washington Post, maybe, saying America needs less sports, not more sports. I just don't agree. And it's not because I'm trying to have a career in sports. But it's because the way that sports brings us together, and I was really reminded of this on Monday with what happened in NASCAR and Bubba Wallace. And I was really reminded of, and obviously they know that, they have since found evidence that, there wasn't a hate crime against Bubba Wallace, which is obviously good news. But you look at what happened in NASCAR and how everybody rallied around Bubba Wallace on that race car track and how those videos circulated on social media, on news programs in the morning and the evening, on TV, stations like ESPN and anywhere else, Fox Sports. You watch how that all happened, and wasn't that a galvanizing moment, not only for NASCAR, but it felt good watching it, right? And it showed us how good sports can make us feel. Now, let's say, the NBA, some of the NBA players said it might distract, right? If we play, it might distract us, or distract the people from what's going on in our country right now with social justice. And I understand that, and they have their right. It is their choice to play or not. It is their right to have that opinion. But the argument could definitely be made that them playing and the moments that playing could create would be more beneficial. Again, it's their choice, but we saw how it galvanized the NASCAR family on Monday. And sports can unite people. And that is what has been so critical, I think, in sports, is the amount of unity that it can show. Now, has there been flaws? Absolutely. The NFL is front and center with what happened with Colin Kaepernick, etc. But we have seen how not just race and not just, the color of people's skin, but just overall, how you can sit down with a stranger next to you at Miller Park and be cheering for the same team and hoping and high-fiving when we could high-five, but high-fiving for Ryan Braun hitting a home run, right? It's absolutely, it's something that sports can do that not a lot of other things can do. TV shows can also do that sometimes. Movies can do it. But the camaraderie of sports, I think it's just so critical, and I'm so happy that it's coming back. So I really think this is good for our country. It'll be great to have baseball back. Should they have done it earlier? Maybe, but I don't know. Here's the deal. Let's get into some of these specifics of the plan, okay? The schedule that has been proposed and is getting finalized. Now, by the time I release this, we might have a schedule already, so you might have seen it either way at the time that I'm doing it. we've got a schedule of 40 games against divisional opponents and 20 against corresponding interleague divisions, which means the Milwaukee Brewers, if we were to take things from their perspective, as we will kind of a little bit throughout these rules that I'm going to talk about, they're going to play everybody in their division, the Cubs, the Reds, the Pirates, the Cardinals. They're going to play each of them 10 times. And then we are going to have 20 games against interleague. And what I'm seeing is that 6 of those 20 will be against their interleague rival. So the Brewers will play the Twins 6 times. And then the other 14 will be comprised of the White Sox, the Indians, and the Royals, and the Tigers. Okay? So that's what it looked like, or that's what it looks like it's going to be. Now, this begs the question of travel, right? Because yes, you can play the other people in the corresponding interleague division. Like the Central's going to play the Central, and the West is going to play the West, and the East is going to play the East. That's fine. But when you really look at a map or look at how far these teams are going to travel, it's not simple, and it's not a short jaunt. I mean, the easiest travel is for probably the 10 NL East and AL East teams because they'll never leave their time zone, period. The Yankees and Mets will play just 4 teams located more than 240 miles from New York. The Rays, the Blue Jays, the Marlins, and the Braves, okay? But for those teams, the Blue Jays, the Marlins, the Braves, and the Rays, there's going to be, especially for those southern teams, the Marlins, the Braves, and the Rays, there's going to be significant travel constantly up to that Northeast, right? Constantly. Now, the West has it absolutely, and I'm going to give you a map of this in a second because I want you to see this fantastic map that I saw on Twitter, and I want to share it with you. Now, the 10 NL West, the AL West teams, they're going to be forced to cover 3 time zones, including the West, Mountain, and Central time zones to fit into all this because obviously Houston is in the Central, Colorado's in the Mountain, and then you have the West Coast teams like the Giants and all that. So travel, to me, is going to be the most fascinating part of this and the most thing that could hinder the season because that is how you could get COVID-19, right? It's not like you're bringing everybody to Orlando like the NBA is and saying you're not going to go on another plane for 3 months. They're going on planes. They're going on trains. They're going on automobiles. I don't know what exactly they're going on, but most likely it's going to be a lot of plane rides. And they'll have to stay in hotels. They'll have to take buses to the games with, sitting each person close to each other. They'll have to, like I said, take planes. They'll have to most likely eat together. That will be the toughest part to keeping these guys healthy. It just will. So take a look at this. Take a look at this on Twitter. The Brewers are kind of somewhere in the middle on all of this because they're in Milwaukee and they have some travel, not a lot other. But I want you to take a look at this, and what I'm showing to you right now is from Baseball Brit on Twitter, and it outlines how much travel will be needed for these teams. I mean, look at this. It's all kind of color coded. Okay, so you got the middle. Those colors are going to be, your Midwest teams. And then you've got the West, the AL West and the NL West teams that'll play each other kind of on that left half of the country there, with Houston and Texas and Colorado, et cetera. And then I think, the East is fascinating here because you have most of your teams obviously in the Northeast, but then those outliers of I've never really seen the entire, MLB mapped, like this. And you can see how there's like no teams in Montana or Wyoming or Idaho, but obviously, why would you have a team there? But anyway, if you look at the southern part of the United States, and you see Atlanta, and you see Miami, and you see Tampa Bay, that's going to be interesting because they're going to constantly have to go to Philly and New York and Baltimore and places in the Nationals, Washington, places like that. They're going to have to constantly go there. And that is going to be longer plane rides, and it has to beg the question: the more you have to travel. For instance, the Brewers only would have to go to the Eastern time zone, would be the farthest, right? They won't have to go west at all. That daunting West Coast road trip of the Dodgers, Giants, and maybe the A's is not going to happen. But for the Astros, that'll happen, and they'll have to go all the way to the left. Look at this here. Look at this. We got, the Houston Astros. Look how far they are from Seattle. That's a division team that they're going to play 10 times. Okay? So it begs the question here, will the teams that have to travel the most be fatigued because it's only a 60-game season and only like 2 months, really 2 months and 3 days or whatever, since they want to end the season on September 27th. Will they be less ready for or more fatigued come the postseason and maybe not fare as well? Could you have the Dodgers because they have to travel more, not fair as well? Could you have Colorado if they make the playoffs, not fair as well, right? So maybe less teams in the West make the postseason. Maybe the wild card teams come from the East this year, right? All these things might have a role in this. So I think it's going to be very interesting to watch the travel aspect of all of this. And I just still can't believe they're going to do all this in their home ballparks because there's so many different variables when it comes to that. Like I mentioned, the hotels, the buses, the planes, but then there's also, what if you have rising numbers here and you don't here? And what if there's, an outbreak here? And that's just, and they're going to have, the MLB said, we can move your team if need be. So we're going to kind of prepare for that. And so that's going to be interesting. And there's so much to all of this, but that's kind of the travel part. How about the DH? Because there's a lot of back and forth in the DH. Will there be a DH this year? Will there be a DH next year? What's going to happen? Now, I think after 2021, I think the DH in the NL is going to be here to stay. And I think the pitchers are done batting after 2021 because that's when the CBA is up. And I think in the new agreement, they're going to have a DH. Now, for this year, there will be a DH. For next year, there's no plan at this point to have a DH. So this is going to be the first time in history that pitchers won't hit at any point in a major league season. Isn't that unreal? First time. Now, I'm hoping it doesn't happen next year. I actually hope that they don't have the DH next year, and then they come back in 2022. If they're going to have a DH. That's fine. That's the CBA, no control over that. But I think what they should do is, sure, have a DH this year, makes sense with the 60 games, but come back next year and have us enjoy one more season of NL baseball because I love the strategy of that. And I heard a reporter talking about today, I don't know the name, but I heard it on the radio, on the Bill Michaels show, which can be heard statewide in Wisconsin. And he was saying, well, once we get into this and once, you get a year or two of the DH, you're not even going to think about how you wish the pitchers would hit. And I'm thinking, yeah, and that could be true. It's just like you have to try it, right? Try it, see if it works, see if you like it, see what happens, and maybe you do forget about it. But there's also part of me that's like, I love the strategy of it. And so for these, for me as a and I love baseball strategy and the mind games and everything that goes into it and the mental part of it, I think that is very It's going to be tough to adjust to, but it is what it is. And it helps the Brewers because Ryan Braun could be a DH. So it helps the Brewers almost more than any other team. Extra innings are going to start with a runner on second base. I love this idea, and I think they should maybe keep it for the future, but we'll see. This will be fun. And we talked, I talked a little bit about this on my, I do 2 times a week segment with Dave Carney on the morning show on WKTY where I work. And we talked about this way early on, is throw everything at the wall here for baseball and see what sticks, because this is the time to try things. And I'm really hoping that they mic up players, and I haven't seen a lot about that, but I'm hoping they do. And I'm hoping, and I like this extra innings, start with a runner on second base because it speeds up the game. Obviously their point is let's get the game done as fast as possible and not have 15-inning games, etc. So it's going to be some very interesting strategy, and will it bring back bunting? That is going to be fun because bunting has been, on the decline for these last couple of years, and I would guess you're going to see more bunting. If you have a runner at second base, I think that first person, if they're not a slugger, they're going to bunt. Just you watch. This is an interesting one. Suspended games. Any games that start but are then halted by weather will now be considered suspended games, meaning they will be resumed at the point when they are stopped. The purpose of this is to avoid long weather delays in an era in which health officials advise having players together at the ballpark for long periods of time is not good. So, have them at the ballpark for as little time as possible. So that's fine. I actually thought they might have went the other way on this. Because, so basically this rule is saying, so games, even if they are in the 8th inning and called, say, it's raining, we're not going to be, because there's going to be rain delays. We have to think about that. There's a 60-game season in 66 days, but there's going to be rain delays. So we have to think about that. Now, even if games are in the 8th inning, usually they would say, okay, it's an official game. Brewers, let's say the Brewers were winning 5-4 over the Cubs. And they said, okay, we're in the 8th inning. The rain's going to go all night. We're just going to stop the game. The game is over. It's official. They're not going to do any of that. They're just going to say, okay, we're going to pick it up tomorrow in the 8th inning. I thought they would have went the other way, and once they start the game, if it rains, they're like, game is done, won't be made up, that's it. Game is done. Even if you play 2 innings before the rain. Because if you're trying to cram all these games into a certain amount of days and you're trying not to have these players together as much as possible, why would you bring them the next day to finish a game in the bottom of the 8th inning, right? So I think it's, either way, obviously you're not going to sit through a big, long rain delay. If you're obviously, if you're suspending games and saying we'll carry it out the next day, but you are having them come to the ballpark earlier and you are having them be at the ballpark longer because you're starting earlier. Get what I'm saying there? Because if you start, if you suspended a game in the 8th inning on Monday, Tuesday you come in and you say, all right, we're going to start in the 8th inning and then we're going to play a full game. Well, there you go. Now all of a sudden, you've got the players at the ballpark longer. So I thought they would have said, even if we're the 2nd inning, we're done. But that's not what happened. So there's some of the strategy here. As far as players go, there's no minor league season. So all the teams will carry a pool of 60 players, about half of whom will be part of a taxi squad, like I mentioned earlier, assigned to an alternate site not located at the team's home ballpark. I've heard a lot of rumors that it might be in Appleton at the Wisconsin Timber Rattlers' home, which would make sense for the Brewers because it could slide right down to Miller Park, much like the Oshkosh, Oshkosh herd for the Bucks, right? So, it's interesting. The teams are going to need to submit the names of those 60 players by Sunday at 2 p.m. Central. So clubs can invite as many as all 60 of those players to the Major League Spring Training Camp, but players not on the 40-man roster also can be assigned to an alternate spring training site. So there's going to be a lot of movement of players, and that could bunker down on COVID-19. Which won't be fun, but we'll see. I've also seen that, like the Mariners I saw today are considering having recent draft picks on their taxi squad. So could other teams do the same? Pick guys who have, hardly any experience, that just throw them in there and see what happens? Why not, right? If you're ever going to do that, why not? So it'll be interesting if some of these, like this year's first round picks, get a chance this year. But anyway, there are other rules. Those are the main ones. So look, this season won't look the same, okay? But it will be baseball. And I think it'll be really exciting brand of baseball. You're going to have a push to the finish like we haven't seen. I mean, this is the shortest season since 1878. I mean, this is going to be so fun, especially, I think, for baseball fans. And you can say, purists are going to be mad because it's not 162 games and the DH is coming to the NL and runners on second base, blah, blah, blah. For me, I love just the normal game of baseball. But I'm super excited for it to be back, and I'm super excited that it's going to be a sprint to the finish because it's a year unlike any other, and why not have a baseball season unlike any other? So that is my opinion on that. So let's enjoy it. I know the fight between both sides looked greedy as heck, and it absolutely did. It wasn't a good look, and in my opinion, it shouldn't have been played out publicly. If they wanted to play out publicly, like I said earlier, which I think they half did intentionally, if they wanted to do that, they shouldn't have put all the numbers out there and everything, but kind of just pace it, right? Say we're sending a proposal. Proposal was rejected. Not we're sending a proposal with 75% prorated salary, and then we're going to go out and we're going to, part of this plan is to have players, stay at their home ballparks, and then part of this plan is to have a 60% raise in the postseason, and then part of this plan is we saw so much of that, and I don't think we needed to do that. But I do think that it might have been a little purposeful that they let all the cats out of the bag, if you will. So anyway, but here we are. If you're a baseball fan, let's root like heck for this to succeed, okay? Because it's going to be tough, even though there's a deal in place, even though they're supposed to report July 1st, even though there's opening day July 23rd or 24th. Though that's all in place right now, COVID-19 is going to have the last say. It is. We just saw, 2 hours after they announced play ball, not even, Charlie Blackmon of the Rockies tested positive. So there's going to be positive tests, and that's a whole nother discussion as far as the health goes. But I'm just trying to focus here on the strategy, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun. We've bickered and complained enough. Play ball. Play ball. Play ball. anyway, thanks so much for watching or listening to the Hunter Baumgardt Sports Podcast. My name is Hunter Baumgardt, your host, and you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at HunterBOnAir. Like the Facebook page as well, Hunter Baumgardt Sports. Remember, you can watch or listen to the podcast. Like I said, you can watch on YouTube or listen on SoundCloud. Just search Hunter Baumgardt Sports Podcast and feel free to subscribe so you never miss a podcast. Thanks so much once again for watching or listening. A lot of fun to talk baseball again and talk a little strategy in it. Oh my goodness, next month we have sports coming back. I started this sports podcast in late February. My first podcast might have been like the 1st or 2nd of March. And it was about Christian Yelich signing a massive deal with the Brewers, which I haven't thought about more than like twice over the last few months. And if the baseball season was happening, I promise you that I would have thought about that more. But unfortunately, I didn't. But now I'm excited about that because we're not wasting a year of Yelich's prime because he's coming out. Also, Ryan Braun, this is another thing. As far as Milwaukee goes, Ryan Braun, last year of his deal, a couple of things with Ryan Braun. Does he opt out of playing this year because I believe his wife is expecting, and then come back and sign a one-year deal next year, and play one more season with the Brewers? Because otherwise, if this is his last season with the Brewers, he won't play in front of fans at all, which is sad. So something to think about with Ryan Braun. But he's going to be used as the DH if he comes back, which I'm assuming he will. I don't think he'll opt out, but that should be fun as well. So anyway, thanks for watching or listening, and I'm excited. Baseball's back, and can't wait. So, as always, stay positive.